bhutaha. And the other, not just funny, but the important part is that the experiencer as well as the experienced is not me. See, this is the thing that we have to sort of get introduced to the topic. So, the mistake we make is that we take ourselves as the experiencer, and we are apart from the experience. This is our bifurcation is along those lines. I am the experiencer and the world, the Jagat, is the experienced. And this is how we lead our lives and have led our lives from long time. And we continue to do it that way. And there you find that it is very consistent. All of our life's experiences give credence to that bifurcation. This is I'm the experienced and that is the experiencer. I'm the experiencer and this is the experience. So now the Upanishad says this is not right. You're making a basic mistake which you use to which causes you to suffer in your life. It gives you some temporary relief, but really this is not what you should really look at. So what should I look at? What I should look at is that both the experiencer and the experienced is not my nature. This is saying a lot. That I am the experiencer is also not me. This is saying a lot. That means that the experiencer, consisting of a very sophisticated set of equipments, is also given to me. Given to me to enjoy and ultimately to discover the truth about myself. It's like a car. A car is a very sophisticated equipment. I just bought a brand new car for my wife. My wife had a Audi Q5 that she's had for like six years. And finally it was starting to give problems, so we leased a new one. And I just picked it up from the dealer about a week ago. My goodness, what things, technology have changed so much in the last few years. It's just amazing. And for the time being, my wife refuses to drive it. She says, this drives me crazy, I cannot. So you drive it and you figure it out. And once you have figured it out, you please train me. So now I'm driving her car for the next, I don't know for how long. We will see. But I am just amazed how much technology and how much sophistication the cars are getting. They must have hundreds of computers in it. Amazing. Very similar to that is the equipment given to us as our body-mind complex. My goodness, especially if you it is just like you deserve this, you have really worked towards it. Like for example, supposing a person is not able to afford a brand new car. He has maybe $1,000 and you go to somebody and get a 15 or 20-year-old car that has no technology, just gets you from one place to the other, which is fine. So similarly, we have passed through a stage where we're used to be perhaps just animals. for sure. We have been, how we were, we don't know. Whether we were dogs or cats or something, perhaps all of them, we have no idea. This is very difficult to find out. But the equipment of the human being is very sophisticated. But it is still an equipment given to you. Just like a car you have now paid for. And now you are the possessor of the car. But we don't make a mistake. We don't say, I am the car. Even though it is the next thing that we do is, this is my car. Don't touch it. I wash it, I paint it, and so on. But it is not me. Here we make a very interesting bifurcation at the wrong point. So, the Upanishad says, please understand step by step. And with instructions, following the reasons for it, convincing myself of it, that this is a mistake, this is not a fact. So what is a mistake is that both the experiencer and the experienced is not me. It is my projection. So it's easy to see that the experienced is not me. Bit more difficult to see that the experiencer is also not me. And so the first 6 verses go into introducing the Atma in a way saying, it is just like saying neti neti, naiti naiti. This is not you, this is not you, this is not you. What is not you is being described in these 6 verses. And this introduction has saying that you essentially have 3 segments where you experience your life, and in each one of all the 3 segments has 2 components to it, experiencer and the experienced. And please follow our instructions. This is the nature of these segments, and in each one of the segments, both the components to be understood, how they are not you. This has to be understood. Then Karika will start with an introduction to the main verse, which is number 7. Na antah prajna na bahish prajna, etc., etc. And then we will start a huge analysis of what is the Atma. These are introductory verses. They are not the main verses per se. So there we saw that the Jagrat stage is where I go through an experience as though things are outside of me. I find, because the bifurcation is that I take myself to be the experiencer, and therefore the things outside of me are different from me. Very much like, for example, if the simplified example that we have been taking is that in the waves of an ocean, if a wave does not understand, if the wave understands that I am just a limited wave, and supposing the wave has consciousness, supposing the water is consciousness, so then there it becomes a conscious wave and is the experiencer. And all the other waves in the ocean become the experienced. You look at bifurcation is done at the experiencer level, and then everything else in the ocean becomes outside of you. Very similar is the situation. The wave doesn't understand that the essential nature of the wave is the water, which is nothing but consciousness, and the others also are nothing but consciousness. I am also nothing but consciousness, and I am playing some kind of a game of experiencer experienced. And so this needs to be understood. Once this is understood, then you can continue to play the game. You can still have the whole Jagat experienced, but the way you look at that is completely different. It becomes totally joyful. So that's the analogy to it. So similarly here also, in the Jagrat Avastha, the only difference between the Jagrat Avastha and the Swapna Avastha, waking state and the dream state is, and so here it's interesting, we'll look at it in a little bit more detail here. So the difference between them is that the Jagrat Avastha, you are experiencing a situation which is of your own making. Again, I'm going to excuse me a second. I'm going to remind you. So this is the thing that I think we all have to keep in mind, and just a quick in terms of reminding and so on and so forth, just a quick side tour. And it really became very clear to me once I was reading something from Swami Maheshananji, this process of understanding and becoming very clear about it. So he pointed out, he said, and this is very personal to me because I tell you, even just now in the class, there are people that I can see, but I am not sure that I have your names down very, very well in my mind. This is the process we have to see, okay? Here's the process. The process is, Swami Maheshananji pointed it out, suppose you are introduced to a person, and this happens to me totally, I can really relate to it. You are introduced to a person, a new student comes in and says, I am such and such, can I join your class? So I says, please come in. I look at their names and they give me their names and they kindly sit down. Now, do I have knowledge of the person? Yes, I have the knowledge of the person that this is such and such, this is what is the name and what does the person look like. I have the knowledge of it. But you know something? I am, even now, if I look at some of the faces, I am not sure that I am that involved with the name and the body that the name comes to me right away. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So then what needs to happen is that I have to really stay with the person for a while. Then the name and the person and the looks and the history with and so on is automatic. So it takes a while for that transition to take place. So similarly here also Swamiji says that supposing an introduction is given to you about the Atma, Jagrat Avastha, Swapna Avastha, and so on, and you understand it, you say, yeah, this seems very reasonable. The examples of this, the wave of the ocean, yeah, I can see that, and so on and so forth. But now what happens is, you're so conditioned over the many, many lives and over the earlier part of this life, so conditioned to take yourself as the experiencer that the recognition of the Atma as being separate from the experiencer is not sitting very easily in your mind. So you forget it. Just like I also forget the names of, I have to, really, this is what happens, I have to reintroduce myself. This is what, and you probably have seen it. Because I've asked you, what is your name again? And you must be saying, I thought I told him this. What's the wrong with this guy? How can he not remember my name? But it takes me a little while. Then if I see you again and again, and hopefully you come to the classes regularly, then I say, oh, yes, this is such and such, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly the process. I tell you, this is a very important thing for us to see. Very important. Because what happens is, in fact, this will come in, I'll go into some more detail. This is in the, this topic came up in the second chapter of Panchadashi. And so this is, in fact, Swami Vidyaranya discusses it. At some point in time, I'll bring it sometime because, you know, I may not have the second chapter. So, here, just to close off this sidetrack, then I'll come back to it. What Swami Vidyaranya said is that if it is not, if you continue to make a mistake that you are the experiencer rather than the fact that you are an unaffected consciousness, there are two reasons for it. He discusses it in great detail. Wonderful. Two reasons why this doesn't happen. One reason is what is called samshaya. So samshaya means not clear knowledge, you still have some doubts about it. And the samshaya comes from not having done shravana enough, not having gone through the clarity of what is the difference between the Atma, the Anatma, and so on and so forth. And if you recall, we went through, and I'll repeat it in the Gita class also, if you recall, it is exactly not being able to distinguish between electricity and an appliance. It's all mixed up. If it's a young person who has not yet experienced life enough, has not seen what the constituents of the lighting and fans is, then that person has to be told, listen, electricity is completely separate from the appliance. Even though the appliance borrows the electricity to function, but the nature of electricity has nothing to do with the appliance. Totally different. So this instruction has to be followed by a young mind and then becomes clear. So similarly here also, the difference between Atma and Atma has to be properly understood. Because right now it is all mixed up. I'm like a working appliance and moving around, talking, this, that, or the other. And where I am and where the appliance is, that line is not very clear to me. This is the way things are. So this needs to be very clarified that even though I am moving around, I am not moving around. And in fact, this will come up in the Gita class today, and that's a very important verse that we're going to study. In verse number 18 of the fourth chapter. So I won't repeat, some of the people may be here for the Gita class also. So that samshaya has to be removed. You have no doubts whatsoever. Then one can say, okay, if I don't have any doubts any further, it is still not working for me. I mean, it seems to be, this is what happens. People say, when I come to the class, it looks like it's clear. And when I go outside, it doesn't seem to do anything. I'm still the same person. So, there are two reasons why it doesn't work for you. One reason is samshaya. So make sure that you understand all aspects of it to a point where you say clear. Absolutely. After that, it's just a repetition. Okay? So this one is samshaya. The other one is connected with the second one that I talked earlier, which is, and the technical word used there is called buddhi arudhaha. Arudhaha. So arudhaha means one which has climbed up to become the buddhi. So roha means to climb, to get up to. So arudha word is used, and even in the Gita also the word arudha is used, and so on. So that is the second reason. And that second reason is what I said earlier, which is that if a person knows me and I know the person, even then I forget what the name is. I have not used enough of it to become completely familiar with the person. So for that, so for samshaya, you need to complete your shravana. For arudha, you need abhyasa. Abhyasa means familiarity with it again and again. And so in the beginning, it looks like it's something new. Once you get acquainted with it, then you have to bring that situation again and again. And if you do not have the ability to bring it up again and again, be patient with yourself. That means that you're trying to do too much. You've spent lives making this mistake. This is not an ordinary thing. This will take a little while. And whether or not you will get it purely depends upon your situation. If your situation is such where you can disentangle yourself from the experiences and spend more time getting acquainted with this in your own quiet way, you'll be a little faster. If you have lots of obligations, responsibilities, you have to be busy with vyavaharika satta, then this paramarthika satta might take a little bit longer time. That's it. Anyway, this detour is finished. This is an important, a very important way of looking at it, because we all have a doubt, and sometimes what happens is very interesting. If you are, supposing you come to some classes, and the classes you like it, and you said these are good classes and I want to continue, you study for a while. And things you have actually studied for a while, you are becoming clear about it, but still your life has not changed very much. Do you know what happens in those cases? You throw away that vidya and do something else altogether. I see this all the time. Then you look for something else, then you've really thrown away the diamond which you should polish. So this is something that we need to think about, because you feel this doesn't work for me. Even though this person seems to know what he's talking about and I enjoy listening, but it's not doing anything for me. So let me try something else. Very natural. So Swami Vidyaranya says, please, Try to understand the whole thing. It is not so trivial that all of a sudden you will just get it like this. You do get it like this, but if samshaya is not removed and the arudha buddhi is not done, it's not going to be fruitful to you. Anyway, that's just a side one that I wanted to take. That can be done at any time. So now going back to the 6 states that all of us are familiar with. Those are in the Jagrat Avastha, experiencer. In the Swapna Avastha, experiencer. And in the Sushupti Avastha, experienced and experiencer. Slightly different, but still similar. So in summarizing this, and we need to proceed on that, a couple of other commentaries. So, Swami Maheswaranji pointed out that your impressions of your life are created in your Jagrat Avastha. It is like you are painting on a cloth. Different experiences with different colors, with different shapes. Then what happens is that when you give up the Jagrat Avastha, and this by the way happens every day, every night, 24 hours. When you give up the painting during the day, it is like the painting is now faded from your mind. And in fact, you wash it off. But in the fainting and the washing off of the cloth, some impressions of the painting are left on the cloth. Some marks are left on the cloth. And Swamiji pointed out that really speaking, you have so many impressions in your life, not only from this life, from the previous life, that your painting is very complex. You have lots of shapes, different experiences, you meet new people, you behave with old people in a different way. Our experiences are just amazing. Swami Dayananji used to say that. He says, if you have the time, everyone should write their autobiography towards the latter part of their lives. It'll be fascinating. You don't have to really go to any special persons to look at their autobiography. That, I wonder how Gandhiji's autobiography was, or it's just everyone's life is so full of things. It is just amazing. All the experiences, all the people that we met, we learned from, good and bad, all kinds of things. So these are the paintings, and every night what happens is the original paint has gone, but the impressions are still left on it. Swami Maheswaranji made a very beautiful point. He says, he's very familiar with these things. I'm really amazed. He says that in the West, the psychiatrists use these ink stains to determine what kind of thinking a person has. You must have seen this, remember? You have. So, I have never experienced it myself, I've just heard it. That if you walk up to, supposing you have some problems in depression or whatever, multiple personalities, schizophrenia and so on, those kinds of things. Then one of the things that a doctor does is they bring out these things which has some shapes on them, black shapes and so on, and say, what do you see there? And depending upon the answers, this doctor makes some notes. Oh, I see. This is what this person is. So Swamiji says that in the dream state, this is exactly what happens. What happens is that these are ink stains left from the Jagrata Avastha. And how you react to it depends very much on what your thinking is. So even in the Jagrata Avastha, even in the waking state, same thing is presented to different people, but they all react to the same thing differently. Some people think this is a good person, somebody thinks it's an awful person, some think it's fearful, somebody is happy, all kinds of things. But in the dream state, the stains of the Jagrata Avastha give you different reactions also. And so, really, this is what happens, this is what is called the Bahish Prajna and the Antah Prajna. The Bahish Prajna means, of the Jagrata Avastha means, an outside looks it is outside, even though it is not really outside, but it looks as though it is outside. And in the Swapna Avastha, Antah Prajna means it is within the mind itself. So it's called Antah Prajna. Here Swami Maheshamanji makes another very good point. I was reading about that. He says, in your Jagrata Avastha, the projection of your mind is that this thing is outside of me. The whole world is outside of me. Therefore, even in the impressions in the dream state, your mind projects things as though it is outside. You see the point? The point is this. The impressions of the Jagrata Avastha are that even though, as though things are outside of me. Then, therefore, the marks left for your Swapna Avastha are similar. So, in fact, it's very interesting. Ishvara has given us two eyes to make the outside things look like they have some depth. So the depth perception, the 3D effect comes from two eyes. Both the eyes look at something slightly differently, even though they are quite close together. I'm really amazed at that, honestly, how this is done. I sometimes look at the eyes of the birds. I was watching this show with my granddaughter. Have you heard of this bird called osprey? So there are videos available on YouTube where this osprey, which is a bird with huge wings, not just tall wings but all spread out, how they are watching the fish in the water and how they time it to get the fish, and the fish they pick up is even larger than themselves. If you ever see, you please go to YouTube, it's a fascinating thing. Watching them, their eyes are very close to each other. So their depth perception maybe is not as good as yours and eyes, because our eyes are about, 3 inches apart. So 3 inches apart means that the Jagrata Avastha has a depth perception. This is part of the experience of Jagrata Avastha. But the same Jagrata Avastha leaves impression in the Swapna Avastha where things appear to be outside. However, the original impression, this is how the copy will be also. So then we deal with people and so on and so forth. It just, and then there is no reality to it. After that, it all ends. Similarly, here our acharyas say, one day will come where your repeated understanding of the mithyatvam of the outside world will be very clear to you, and you will be just completely free. Whether you open your eyes, you close your eyes, doesn't make any difference. Your understanding that I am the nature of consciousness alone and everything else is a projection will be very clear to you. You'll wake up. Very clear to you. And a lot of that also is understanding the nature of the mithya. Here Swami Vidyaranya points out, beautiful, again in the second chapter of the, he said, if you look at asat, so sat means what is, asat means what is not. If you look at asat, asat comes in two flavors. Beautiful, very nice analysis. Comes in two flavors. One is where it never appears to you. And so the example of never appeals to you is the horns of a rabbit. And also the modern example, which says a square circle. That cannot possible and doesn't appear to you. So one flavor of asat is it never even appears to you. The second flavor of asat is even though it is not there, it appears to you. And Swami Maheshanji gives this example. He says, when you watch television, this is an example of the second type. You find that there are things going on. In fact, it's good news and bad news. You see the entire Irma and the Harvey and all of the things right there, the waves and all kinds of things with sound and so on. But it's not there. Not at least in your living room. You have to go to Florida if you want to really experience it. But they're not there in the living room. So in the living room, asat appears to you even though it gives you the experience without being there. This is the definition of mithya. So both the Jagrata Avastha and the Swapna Avastha are asat of the second type. They give you a certain experience, but they are really not there. When you really examine it in the proper way, it is not there. Not there at all. It is not the first type, it is the second type. Lovely, very nice analysis of doing this. So then going back to this, one other thing, just as a side note to this, if you study the Buddhistic view, the Buddhists say that the Jagrata Avastha and the Swapna Avastha are exactly the same. They say exactly this is the same. Vedantins don't say that. We say that the two are very similar, but there are differences. There are differences, and by knowing the difference, one should explore the similarities. You cannot say that there's no differences whatsoever, because they are very obvious. So we disagree with that. So disagree with that means Buddhism came much later in the time. So they've oversimplified things. And they feel that everything is nothing but everything is mithya. Everything is mithya and therefore they are the same. We say that even though the two are mithya, no doubt about it, but the way they appear to you are totally different and you need to see the differences between them. And so, for example, one of the differences is, and this is all analyzed in great detail, I think it will come in the Karika also, so I'm just giving you an introduction. So one of the differences is that in the Jagrat Avastha, the Vishaya means a subject that you are experiencing, has to be present. In the Swapna Avastha, it doesn't need to be present. Even though your experience is the same. So here, the analysis made is, Swami Maheswaranji made this analysis, that suppose you experience the joy of eating ice cream. Eating ice cream, which is called bhoga. Bhoga means an enjoyment of something. In the Jagrat Avastha, you have to have ice cream in order to enjoy ice cream. This is a very beautiful thing. You cannot sit there, close your eyes, and enjoy ice cream just by imagining. You can't do that. Somebody says, I wish I had ice cream. You know what that means? That means that I am suffering from not having ice cream right now. Isn't there a place that we can go to? So somebody says, no, we don't have any place to go to, but just close your eyes and imagine. Just imagine that you have ice cream and you're having bhoga and so on and so forth. She says, I'll try, but I don't think it's going to work. So no, try. You close your eyes for a while and then you say, it doesn't work. It's not going to happen. But you know what? In the dream state, you can have the bhoga of an ice cream without having ice cream. This is the difference. So, in the analysis of all this, this is what all this is pointed out in great detail, where you're pointing out that you see the how this whole thing is being designed by Ishvara, and you have to see the differences in order to see the similarity. You cannot tide over that and say everything is the same. No, that's oversimplifying. Anyway, so that's another part of it. So in the now, just to finish this off, we saw in the third verse, Jagrita sthanaha bahishpragyaha saptangaha. So we already did that last time, the 7 limbs. Ekona vimshati mukhaha, 19 different areas where you experience things. 19. So we saw pancha indriyas of knowledge, pancha indriyas of action, karma indriyas, then pancha pranaha, and the pranaha here is physiological functions. The best way to look at pranaha is physiological functions. So they are not physical but they are physiological. It's a beautiful English word, physiological. So what that means is that, so even in the case of indriyas, even in the case of jnana indriyas, this is an interesting thing to see. It is not the physical organ that we are talking about. So, for example, eyes have a particular shape, very, very beautiful shape. How the iris and the white portion and all of that, very sophisticated camera. So this is the physical nature of the eye. But the jnana indriyas is not the physical description of the eye. It means the ability to see is the jnana indriya. And you can actually have function, your eyes are there. This is what happens. That I believe this must be the reason why the blind wear dark glasses. And the reason is, it is to tell someone that I cannot see. So please, I am a blind person. The completely dark ones, and of course they have a stick or something like this. But just by looking at somebody's eyes, you cannot tell the person cannot see. And in fact, another thing is very interesting. The Shakti, the power to do something, can only be gathered from its effect. This is the famous example, so well presented by Swami Dayanandji. Remember that where he says, when I first came to this country, and the very first visit, so they said, we'll take you to the best doctors. Swamiji, you've come to the America, and we want to give you a complete physical checkup. Okay, so we'll look at how you're doing, your health, and so on and so forth. Swamiji said, oh, that's wonderful. So, so you start with the doctor, and they put the stethoscope, and he says, yeah, this is okay. Breathe deeply. Yeah, that's okay. All right. So 5 or 6 places, they say, your heart and lungs are working well. Good, good. Then he went to see the eye doctor. So Swamiji said, I'm so complicated machinery. I had never seen this in India, He said, wow, this country is so advanced. This is so wonderful. He was sitting there saying, I'm well taken care of. So the doctor came and said, how do you see this? Swamiji says, yeah. Okay, let me put it this way. Can you see this better? So Swamiji says, yeah, this is slightly better. Swamiji says, I got up from it, not sure whether I gave the right instructions or not. He says, why are they depending on me? Why can't they tell me whether my eyes are working or not? Not possible. You have to see from how you feel. So this is what is the purpose of this analysis? The purpose is that the Shakti, which is the Sukshma Shakti, the Sthula Shakti is that the eyes must be there. The Sukshma Shakti is that the entire mechanism of seeing must be intact. So the Jnana Indriyas talk about both, but particularly to the Sukshma Shakti. So anyway, so we have these 15. And the physiological functions also are very sophisticated. Very sophisticated. So you have prana, apana, vyana, samana, all of these. There's so much going on. just to keep this equipment working. So beautiful. How the fuel is taken in. And so there, the fuel that you take from outside in terms of oxygen is the samashti. Then how you utilize it to create a functioning human being is the vyashti. And both of them are involved in the expression of the Atma. Not the Atma, but just the expression of the Atma, just the expansion of the Atma, the experience of life. But so it is kind of like the appliance which requires the Atma, but the Atma is separate, like the electricity is separate from the. This should be kept in mind as we proceed further. Anyway, I think we're pretty much done. And then the four very, very subtle aspects of the 19. So those are manaha, buddhi, chittam, and ahankara. And so out of this, probably the most fascinating to look into and examine is the ahamkara. The ahamkara is also anatma. And anatma means it is part of the experiencer, not the Atma. It is a reflection of the Atma. It is not the Atma itself, but it is the reflection of the Atma which gives rise to the fact that I am an experiencer. In fact, I think one thing that we should see, I am this. So you look at this analysis. I am this. There are two aspects to this. One is I am, and the other one is this. I am is the Atma, but I am this is the Ahankara. So here the issue is that I only see myself for the present time as I am this. I don't see myself devoid of this. That I am is lost to me. This is an important thing. We're going to go over this in great detail. So, the ahankara is the reflection of the Atma which brings about the status of I am this. And the fact of the matter is, you don't need thisness to exist. You can be there as I am, but I am so conditioned by being this, that, or this, that, the others, and so on, that I cannot think of myself as I am. I can't even enter the possibility. The fact of the matter is, you are not this, you are. So this is what the Satchidananda is. So in order to get to that point, which is the 7th verse, we are looking at where we make the mistake. I am this and I am that. So the thisness and the thatness is being discussed. And here in the Ekona Vimshati Mukhaha, in the 19 different ways where I express One of them, which is the most important in my view, our view, is ahankara. Ahankara means I am this. And the funny part is, and that also is a series of thoughts which gets repeated every nanosecond. I am this, I am this, I am this. I am this forms the basis of my mistake. Then I get associated with, first I establish I am this, and then I get associated with the body, with the condition of the body, my age, my mental makeup, I'm happy, I'm unhappy. All those kinds of things come later on. But it starts with the basic mistake. I allow myself to say I am this. This is the beginning of the problem. So ahankara is a very important element in the analysis of this. So anyway, I think our time is pretty much up. But so now, the only thing that I did not get a chance to talk about is in the fourth verse, Pravivikta Bhuk. So this is one thing that I need to, I'll make a note of it for the next class. And so with that, we are done with the first two stages of our life, which is the Jagrata Avastha and the Swapna Avastha. Then we will go into the Sushupti Avastha next, which is verse number 5. And then verse 5 and 6 are similar. Then we are now ready for the Karika to begin a detailed explanation of the main verse of the Upanishad, which is na antah pragyam, na bahish pragyam, etc., etc., which is verse number 7, and we will see that. So with that, I end this class. Om swasti prajabhyah paripalayantam न्यायेन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गो ब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं शोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Yeah, Ronnie?
So I wanted to ask you why is Ekona Vinchuti Mukha, why is 19 specific number of faces mentioned in these two paragraphs, verses? Is it just for an arbitrary number, or there are 19 aspects specific?
So the 19 aspects, those what I said, the 5 Jnana Indriyas, 5 Karma Indriyas, 5 Panchaparna, and the 4 states of the mental vrittis, which is Manaha, Buddhi, Chittam, which is memory, and Ahankara means the very presence of myself as this. So those are the 19 basic constituents, and sometimes you can collapse them, in all the 5 Jnana Indriyas can be treated as one. So the number is not that important, but the 19 is a full explanation of how my experience, what constitutes my experience. Yeah, those are the 91. Yes.
In the Saptang that we discussed last week,
Correct.
the Drashti,
Correct.
and all that, is it given somewhere in the Upanishad or because I couldn't see in the verses?
In the verses, it may not be given. So I think that some other Upanishads may describe it. I'll have to look for that, or perhaps it might come back later on in the Karika also. I don't remember, but the Karika will go back and expand on the Saptanga. But I'll see whether it is very separately described. Yeah. Yes.
You talked about experiencer and experience.
Correct.
Swami Paramatmananda alludes to experiencer and experienced. Is there a difference?
No, I also said experienced.
Oh,
Yeah. I also said the same thing.
I heard it as experience.
No, so this is what is called Triputi. The very famous Triputi means that three ways of looking at things. So experiencer, experienced, and experience. So the very phenomena of the experience, which includes both of them, is also taken. So yeah, Shilpa.
So earlier in the sentence you said we need to go from Jagrata Avastha to dream state. Yeah, so and now you said that we experience whatever that we experience without the thing being there. So from Jagrata Avastha to Swapna, what are we exactly looking for to go there and look for what?
So what is said is that this will come in more detail later on, that the Vedantic view is that you cannot be a mithya. There cannot be an appearance without a truth. So in all of this, the appearance is being analyzed, but the truth upon which the appearance resides has not yet come. It has been talked about, I am Brahma, I am Atma, etc. in the first two verses, but in detail it has not yet arrived. So in going from Jagrata Avastha into Swapna Avastha, and also in the Sushupti Avastha, which is slightly different, we are simply understanding the nature of mithya, of appearance. But the underlying thought is, you cannot have mithya without satyam. So that's what, like for example, in the case of an ornament cannot be made out of air. It has to have some metal or some substance from which something is carved, like a stone carving. So the stone carving, the very shape of the carving may be mithya in that sense, but it must reside on a substance. And so similarly here also in our experiences, so this is really like a carving, a very sophisticated carving, beautiful painting, but it has a basis upon which, and I am the basis. Who am that I? That will be explained as we proceed further.
That means it's a projection of Atma, wherever.
Yes, it's a projection of the Atma. That's exactly right. Yeah. According to certain laws. It's not a random projection. Ishvara has given us the laws upon which I make projections, and then I'm free to make my own projection in the dream state. But those projections in the dream state also have some limitations, because they only can come from the impressions of Jagrata Avastha. So that ink stains we talked about were caused by something. And so from there, I create my own experiences and so on and so forth. But the purpose of the Swapnavastha is very important, is to say that, wow, I can actually have experiences without being affecting me. I can be independent of it. So similarly, then I project it on the Jagrata Avastha, and one day I will be independent of that also. Yeah.
I don't know if this is a right observation or not, but in Jagrata Avastha, you can only be your individual. You cannot be another person. Whereas in Swapna Avastha, I can dream of many characters, many people, and I'll be everyone, right?
So there also one interesting thing is that during one episode of a dream, you actually have ahankara there also. And for that episode of the dream, that ahankara means that identity of who you are remains fixed. Then you can have another episode of the ahankara, of the so on and so forth. It's interesting, I sometimes try to the best of my ability, analyze, what kind of a dream I had. And there I find that I play pretty much myself. I don't become a woman, for example. I'm still, even though I cannot see my body, but my feelings of who I am reflect the fact that who I was. It was interesting. I don't make a completely new person for that. Within that, it is very possible that a particular dream episode may see myself as a troubled person who is affected badly by the things, or I might see myself as an independent person. Those differences may accrue, but it is the fact that I fix myself for an episode and I don't change that, very much like Jagrata Avastha. Yeah. So a couple of things. One is that I think I'll double check it, but I believe that we were going back to the Jain Bhavan from next week. So I'll send you a confirming memo in the next day or so. The other thing is there's somebody here who wants to have an Arangetram, and they wanted some material for Aim for Seva, some trifolds and so on. Does anybody have? I've looked at myself, I don't have anything. If you have any material left over from the Mahadevan concert, like trifolds or annual reports or something, please let me know, because this person, they want to raise money for Aim for Seva and the Arangetram, as they wanted some material for it. So please let me know if you have any. Okay, so we'll see you next week.
Madhu is not here.
Sorry?
Madhu?
Madhu is not, no, she is in Europe. Oh, good.